You are now listening to the Building Her Dream podcast, where we have inspiring conversations with introverted women entrepreneurs who are building their dream lives and businesses on their own terms. Hosted by business operations strategist, author, and the founder of Building Her Dream, Shayla Burton. To learn more about this podcast and our magazine, visit www.buildingherdream.com. Hello, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. I'm your host, Shayla Burton, and this is the Building Her Dream podcast. I'm so thrilled to chat with today's guest. She is a lawyer, an author, a publisher of several educational and inspirational children's books featuring Black children and families. She is the founder of Sugar Cookie Books. All the way from Houston, Texas, we have Tiffany Obeng. Hi, Tiffany. Welcome to the show.
Hello. Thank you for having me. It is a pleasure.
Yes. Thank you for being here. Now, I always like to start off with a fun question. So, Tiffany, if you could wake up tomorrow and have the perfect dream life, what would that look like for you? So, where would you be? What would you be doing? What's your dream?
And that is an amazing question. So, I think I've taken 2023 to kind of figure out what is the purpose of everything that I'm doing at this time. I am fulfilled in both sides of my life, the entrepreneur life of making books, publishing books, but also my daytime job as a lawyer, which kind of go hand in hand and overlap. So I haven't really thought beyond like, well, where will Sugar Cookie Books take me? And I kind of been on this journey of 2023 to kind of figure that out. So I guess if I were to just give you something. I would like to have made a significant impact, I guess, in the children picture book industry, as far as diversifying it, making sure our Black children and families and voices are prominent. I am currently 20 books in, and that's in less than 3 years. So I think I am making a lot of strides, but I am taking a creator break on that front. So I think just having that impact, being one of those change makers, social impact authors in that space, but also being able to travel more. We work so much, but when do we really just have time to spend with our families? And so this year I've been really trying to make a presence in Houston as an author, business, publisher, things of that sort, speaker. And so that's taken a lot of time. So I would like to be able to wake up and stretch like I did on Memorial Day weekend and be like, what does the day hold? Let's go on a trip, or let's just hang out and just slow down. So I guess I'm working toward slower lifestyle. Filled with happiness.
Yes, absolutely. That sounds great. That's definitely my dream, is to have a slower lifestyle, waking up with no alarm clock and just deciding on a whim, like what I want to do that day. So that sounds great to me. Now, you said that you currently are still working as an attorney, right?
Yes.
Wow. And then so you're growing your business on the side pretty much. Why don't you tell me a little bit about your journey as an entrepreneur? So how did that get started?
Sure. So it began in 2020, like most other people who have started their entrepreneurial journey recently. So being an author is something that I've said I wanted to do since I was young. Same thing as being a lawyer, both of which I was like, oh, I'm gonna do that. But of course, or as you see, I became an attorney first, and being an author kind of just went on the back burner. And I also didn't understand what type of author I wanted to be. And I never would have guessed I would be a children's picture book author. But now it completely makes sense. But so the journey into becoming an author was, I had written a manuscript that eventually became Andrew Learns About Actors. But I had written a manuscript to teach kids the difference between actors and the characters that play them, or actors and the characters they play, shall I say, which became really important when Chadwick Boseman died, as he was Black Panther. And so kind of separating those two and explaining the two. Or even when King Richard was out, I remember watching that movie with my son, and he's like, wait, so they're teenagers? Meaning Serena. I'm like, no, darling, they're not. But so I had written a manuscript before 2020. My mama and my husband were on my back about becoming an author. And I'm like, I don't know what to do. So I kind of like was researching different publishing companies and things of that sort, but realized that it's not just easy to call a publishing company and get in. Like, you have to have agents and things of that sort, and you have to have agents, really. Yeah. And so during 2020, I came across Facebook groups and other groups that were talking about independent publishing and how to do that. And I was like, wait, what? And so I also had a friend, or I have a friend, who had published a book, and she used a hybrid publishing agency. I attempted to connect with them, but they weren't accepting any more solicitations. And so I decided, let me just go at it myself. And so I did it secretly without telling my mom and my husband. And it wasn't until after I had like the illustrations that I was like, look what I did. And they were like so excited. And so that's how I got into it, just trying to do a bucket list item, if you will. But as I tell, anyone who subscribes to my newsletter, I didn't get in to change the industry, but I stayed in to change the industry. And so that's kind of been the fire of how I've just been continuing to produce content for the masses.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So your books feature Black children in spaces where they've been absent. So what was your like inspiration behind this important mission?
So that mission, so I had a two-pronged mission when I started, which was to inspire and educate. And so that goes along really, really, really with my career book series. So I do have a career book series that is now 5 books in, so 5 careers in. And so I was like, I want to inspire and educate young children, particularly our Black children, particularly our Black boys, to let them know that they can be anything they want to be. Not saying it's anything to aspire to be a rapper or aspire to be a professional player, but I just want them to know, like, you can aspire to be something beyond those 2 professions, which we hear a lot, especially in the urban communities. So I wanted to inspire them to think beyond, inspire them to think bigger, and so they could see it, because if you can see it, you can be it. But then in 2021, after I released my second book, Andrew Learns About Teachers, that's when it kind of clicked, because I started seeing statistics about the children book industry, particularly not having representation when it came to BIPOC or Black characters and other underrepresented groups. And I was like, hold on now. What I'm doing is actually beyond me, okay? And so I started looking through like the different types of books that were out, that were popular, if you will. And I realized there were, well, my son started going through his phase of not telling the truth. So I was looking through that, and I realized there wasn't a lot of books that featured Black characters, if any books that feature Black characters in that space. An honesty book, something very simple, something universal, something everybody can benefit from. So I set out to write my own, and I did, and it's called Scout's Honor. And that was like my first foray into like, this is really needed to give kids a normal, take a universal concept and put a Black kid in a universal concept so everyone can see them as humans and normalizing. And so that became my third prong in my mission. So to inspire, educate, and normalize children. I would have people who bought the book say, because it has a little boy running around with a cape on, and he knocks over a lamp. And so he goes through the process of figuring out, should he lie? Should he tell the truth? Why lying is not good? Why telling the truth is good? Things of that sort. And they were like, oh yeah, I can definitely picture my child running around the house with a cape on. And I was like, this is it. This is one way to do it. This is one way to try to make the world safer for my son and for my children or your children is by putting their faces and bodies and voices in universal situations that everyone can relate to. And so that prompted the Seasons book series that I have that feature Black child characters enjoying the seasons, telling you about the seasons, because I still got to educate. So it's telling you about the seasons, it's telling you what they love about the seasons, and they're just really cute, adorable Black characters. Universal concept about a season. And so they kind of just keep going from there, just really putting our faces, our bodies, our families in normal, relatable situations so we can all be seen as valuable.
Yeah, I love that. I don't personally have children, but I have a young niece and nephew. And when my niece was younger, I would look for, products, books, toys, and stuff that featured a little Black girl on it. And just to see like her response to those products, like I bought her a book bag once that had a little Black girl on it, and she was like, "Oh, that's me." And so I really love seeing that. And then when my nephew was born, I was trying to find similar things for my nephew, and it was harder to find like boys stuff. So when I went to your website, I was excited to see that you had a lot of books with a boy on them.
Yes, and if I can just say this, so I actually I don't want to use the term criticize because it's a harsh term, but I'm gonna use it for this purpose. I actually get criticized for having so many books that feature boys on it. So what happened was, I have a son and I have a daughter, but my son inspired like the Andrew Career book series is named after him. It's his likeness on it. And a lot of the stories or books that I write come from, remember I told you about Scout's Honor. It came because my son was going through his lying phase and I'm trying to figure out like, a book for that. And so a lot of the books are inspired by my son. We're like going through this life together, my author journey and him just growing up. And so they're going to have a boy on it. Like I have Black boy hair joy because of a situation that happened with him and his hair, and being teased by his hair. And so a lot of times people say, well, why don't you have any girl books? And I'm like, well, my books are for boys and girls. It just features a boy. Or they say, oh, I love Black boy hair joy. Where's the girl book? And I'm like, there's dozens of girl books out there for your Black child, your Black girl. So you can have that. So I do have to often defend the creative choice of featuring Black boys on so many of my covers, if not all of my covers, probably about 90% of my covers, as you saw. And again, it's not because I just was like, oh, I have to feature a Black boy. But at the same time, as people kept saying, like, why do you always have boys? And like you said, it's hard to find books that feature Black boys. I'm like, that's why, because my son is a Black boy and he's in danger. And there's not a lot of Black boys in a lot of our children picture books. And our Black boys are not reading. Our Black girls are reading at a better, rate than our Black boys. And that possibly can be because we're not speaking to them in our literature. And so I'm like, I'm going to continue doing what I'm doing. And so I'm glad you brought that up.
Yes, absolutely. We definitely need that representation. Now, how do you hope your children's books will inspire and empower young readers?
Yeah, so with the career books particularly, right now I have actors, teachers. Andrew learns about lawyers. Andrew learns about engineers, and Andrew learns about scientists. And what's great about these books is that, for instance, in the Andrew learns about teachers, I feature a Black male teacher because where I am, that is an anomaly, especially in the lower levels. And so I wanted to put that idea out that you, Black boy, can aspire to become a teacher, an elementary school teacher, if you would like to. And also in the books, I feature very quickly some historical figures that tend to be Black male or Black female, so they can see, once again, like, this has happened, this is what these people have done. If you look up to them, or you can look up to them and you can be them, like, it's not far-fetched that you can be one of these history makers. And so that's the way that inspiring piece comes in, just showing them, teaching them what it is, in a way that they can
Mhm.
understand it, and hopefully engage them so they can say, for engineer, I like math. I think I might want to learn more about engineering. Or also in engineer, it talks about roller coasters and things that's fun for kids, robots and stuff. So it's like, oh, that's cool. That's something I can
Mhm.
explore further. In the sciences book, I have a paleontologist, because my son, because he
Hmm.
inspires everything, he declares he's going to be a paleontologist. That's his declaration right now. And so we have a Black female paleontologist shown in the book.
Mhm.
So it's like just giving that idea, that image that these people are in this field. It may not be a lot of them in the field, but they are in the field and they matter, and you can add to it. I do have the hope of diversifying some of the career fields that are lacking in diversification, such as engineering, lawyers, science. So that's how I'm hoping to inspire children.
I love that. Have you received like any feedback from readers or parents about the impact your books have had on the children?
So on the career books, I get from parent, or I have received from parents so far, that oh my gosh, I didn't know this is what the career was. Like, I've learned something from your book. So it's like, yay, perfect. Andrew Learns About Engineers is a very, like, the most popular of my books. And then second, it would be Andrew Learns About Lawyers. But Andrew Learns About Engineers has been ranked as like the best engineer book for school age kids. So that's not coming directly from a parent, but it's coming from a very high source. So I'm like, I'll take
Right.
it. But as far as like Black Boy Hair Joy, I have had people say, oh my gosh, this boy on the cover, who again is a likeness of my son, at least with his hair color and hair
Mhm.
style and his skin color. They're like, oh my gosh, this looks just like my son. And I'm like, uh-huh. And so they're like, we need this book. Oh my gosh, my son would love to have this book. This is, I know you can't really see it, but that's the boy, the
Mhm.
main character in Black Boy Hair Joy or whatever. And so I have had parents do that. I had someone who thanked me three separate times at an event for writing that book, creating that book, because he was just like, my son is going to love this. I think his son is on a spectrum. So he's just like over the floor with it. And then he sent me pictures and he was like, see, he loves the book. And I'm like, thank you so much. So I have
Right.
had very positive responses on Black Boy Hair Joy and positive responses on My Summer Skin is Radiant, which is a book. I like to ask people, like, what do you think this book is about? But which is a book that's intended to empower and celebrate our darkening summer skin tones, especially in our community, other communities too. I know the Indian community deals with it too, but in our community, predominantly, there is this notion that it's a bad thing to get darker, particularly in the summer. Like, having dark skin is supposedly seen as bad, but getting darker in the summer is also seen as bad. And so I wanted to kind of tackle that issue, so we can celebrate our children and let them be children. Like,
Mhm.
I want to have like this little tagline of, if your kids had fun this summer, their skin should show it. And so My Summer Skin is Radiant was created for that. And so people will come up and be like, oh yeah, we're going to get this book. And I'm like, thank you. Awesome. So they just kind of resonate with that message that's in there.
Yeah, I really like the career series of books. I think back to um like when you graduate from high school and go to college, you're supposed to know, what do you want to be when you grow up? And it's like, I have no idea, because I haven't been introduced to all the different careers that are out there. So I think having these books and, sparking the idea into children when they're younger is really cool.
Yes. And I have that as like one of my forewords in my journal, the Andrew Career Book Journal spinoff, which
Mhm.
is, I was told at a very young age I would be a lawyer. And I accepted that. Didn't know what it was, didn't have examples. And it wasn't until the 11th grade that I actually met a real life attorney. And that's just far too late. So I'm like, if I can do my part to equip children with the knowledge. So when they say, because we're asked so young, like you said, when you're asked, what do you want to be when you grow up? And you can actually have an educated answer. Like, I want to be a lawyer because this is what lawyers do.
Right.
Then yes, that's what I'm waiting on. I'm waiting for that message. It's only been like 2 years, but I'm waiting for that message of my child wants to be a lawyer because of you, your book, or my child wants to do this because of your book. If I haven't received it yet, doesn't mean it's not happening. I just haven't received the response.
Right. Yeah, you'll definitely get that response for sure. Now, do you help others write books as well?
So I help others publish their books.
Okay.
And so I have publishing services, and that can include just a publishing package, which is putting your manuscript and making it into a book so you can actually get it printed, aka published. Or I do have editing services as well. So like actually writing it, I haven't gotten to that, but editing, I don't know how you think writing and editing is the same. I don't know, but actually writing a book for someone else, no.
Yeah.
Ghostwriting, no.
Right. So you help them publish. Okay. Yeah, that's helpful. Now, let's talk a little bit about your journey as an entrepreneur. So I've been, interviewing different entrepreneurs over the past few weeks. A lot of them have been service providers, but here you are selling a product, selling your book. And I know that is something that can be challenging for many introverts. Me specifically, I tried to sell something. My first business was a jewelry business, but I'm not a salesperson. I don't know how to do that. So how do you approach getting your books out there?
Yes. So I do wish we were back in the days before social media and being an author was something you could do without being out there. But I learned really quickly that you do have to connect with people and get in front of people for them to buy in, because nowadays people are buying into you, not really your product. Right. So, but it's exhausting. So how I manage it is social media, for example. I would love the days back to 1990s, I don't know, for social media.
Yes.
But there is an algorithm, and you do have to have a presence. It doesn't have to be the largest presence, but you do have to be active. I guess that's more of the word. You have to be active. And being active on social media does lead you into spaces. People find you and they see that you're being active. So they feel like, okay, if we partner with this person or collaborate with this person, then our stuff will, because everybody wants the attention. They want the advertising. That's pretty much what social media is. And so some people say you have to do the reels, you have to dance around, you have to put on skits, or you have to do this every single day. And I've tried variations, but I just have to be true to me. And I know with myself, what I can give you is probably Monday through Friday, and it can be, something that I just put together this morning.
Yeah.
So I give myself that rest on Saturday and Sunday. You will not find me, or you haven't found me yet. Maybe I will one day, but you will not find me dancing on social media, because that's just not my personality. It's not my personality. So I just try to be true to who I am. I do get on social media as far like a live. I do live interviews on there. And I also have a little IG show, if you will, called The Backstory, where I interview other authors about the inspiration behind their books for 10 minutes. But that's what I can offer. And people are like, no, you're an extrovert. And I'm like, no, I'm a professional extrovert. Like, I can put it on as needed, but I got to take it off. And as far as like vendor events, that wasn't part of my marketing strategy back in 2022 or 2021. But I was like, you know what? I want to actually be in people's mouths when they talk about local businesses. And so I need to get out. And that's because we're introverts. It's very draining having to go and connect with strangers. So like I've read How to Win Friends and Influence People. I have studied my sister-in-law, who is like a professional salesperson. I've had her come to events with me to kind of like buffer or whatever and see how she does things or whatever. And then I try to apply it, and I just try to go full-fledged for the 4 hours or the 6 hours. And then afterward, leave me alone because I'm going to go crash because I had too much interaction. But it is a business, and marketing is part of all of our businesses now, regardless of what we're doing. And you just have to think of it as another part of the job and get it done. I take creator breaks. So as I mentioned earlier, so I do give myself a time to rest and just kind of refocus and shift and just do other things. Because when you're putting out so many books at a time, and now with my in-person events ramping up, it's kind of hard to do the day-to-day stuff, if you will. And remember, I got a full-time job. So, so I'm like, okay, it's 20 books. I think I can chill out for a second, give my mind a rest, kind of rejuvenate the creative flow or juices, if you will. But I do take my breaks, and I just give myself a lot of grace. I always talk about giving ourselves grace, like not comparing ourselves to others, saying, oh, I got to do what they're doing so I can be just like, no, you have to find your lane. You have to find what works for you. I love how Ava DuVernay had said, when you're in your lane, there's no traffic. And so I get into my lane. I know who I am when it comes to marketing or whatever. And it may not be as quick as other people who like to dance. You know what I'm saying? My Instagram may not grow as quickly as other people who like to dance, but I know I'm not going to dance. I'm not going to do it. So I have to be satisfied with the growth I receive, with the views I receive, because I just know my limitations and I am comfortable with that limitation. And it still is productive for me or effective for me because I have received writing gigs from social media because I'm active. I don't have 10,000 followers. I only have 1.3. But I was found before I had 1.3. I was found and asked to write a book. And one of the books that I wrote and recently came out was, I'm sorry, my hair's shitty, was the story of Maya Angelou. And so that was a wonderful gig. I am so excited, beyond excited to have done that gig. And I know it came because I had some activity on social media. Not because I was dancing, but because I had some activity on social media. So that's what I try to tell people, like, hey, social media, love it or hate it, but we do have to do something on it to show that we're active, to show that we're willing to promote, to show that we're a good partner to others, but just do it at your own pace and do it consistently. If you're consistent, it's 2 days a week. You can try that, but I would at least say 3 days a week of doing something. If you're like, just to be consistent so people can know when to expect it, the algorithm can know when to expect you and things like that. And give yourself grace. If you can't do it, then say, hey, that's not going to be my marketing strategy. I really have to focus on something else and find what that something else is that works for you.
Yeah, exactly. The consistency, that part, that's where a lot of people struggle. And when I say a lot of people, me, I struggle with that. I think it's sometimes we're trying to be on too many platforms at once. We need to just find one that we can handle and focus on that. But yeah, and then looking at other ways to market that maybe isn't social media, because people were marketing their business when it didn't exist. So what were they doing?
I know a platform I like to use to market without marketing. And I don't know how this works for other people who are not creatives, but for creatives, for example, Pinterest, because it's a search engine. So I actually hire a Pinterest manager, if you will, to create my content, and they stick it on my Pinterest page, and it's the search engine. And I'm like, I don't have to do anything to it. Like once it's there, it just stays there. I don't have to engage anybody because it's not one of those engagement platforms. So that's one of my happiest ways to market is with Pinterest. And I also work with other people to market my things. I don't want to call them ambassadors because they're not, but like, for instance, I partner with this girl who goes by the activity author. And so she has a couple of her own books, but what she's known for is creating companion activities or crafts for other authors' books. And so she's on YouTube. I'm not on YouTube. I'm not going to get on YouTube because that doesn't fit me.
Yeah.
But because I'm working with her, I end up on YouTube. You see what I'm saying? And so thinking of collaborations like that is a way to expand your presence and your reach without actually having to exert your energy for it.
Yes. Yes, that's smart. That's very
Thank you.
That's very smart. Now, so you've been doing this business since 2020, you said. I know that entrepreneurship is kind of like a roller coaster. What challenges, or what's a challenge that you've had to overcome while running this business?
One of the challenges I would say is, I guess, like, because I have my safety nets of a full-time job, the hustle, I guess, is not as high for me as someone else who is using this to have drive income. So I've kind of had, one of the challenges is just adjusting my mindset of, where do you want to go? Do you want to just be, you know, where you are or where you were, or do you actually want to establish yourself? And if you want to establish yourself, then what are you going to do for it? And so that just kind of crafting like what my future looks like you asked earlier. What do I want? What will it take for me to feel like this business is successful, if you will? And that definition is always fluctuating. Success fluctuates based on what milestones you reached and your goals that you set. Right. So it's like, what is successful? What do you want? And how are you going to do it? Are you satisfied with just having Amazon sales? Or do you want to have more? And that's when I realized that for 2023, Amazon sales were cool, but I also want that local presence. And so just getting over the introvert part of me that's like, I'd rather be sleeping, or I'd rather be at home. Or just doing anything where I don't have to meet with strangers and try to sell them my products would be great. But it's like, no, if you are going to, changing my mindset, if you're going to want to reach this next milestone, you're going to have to get uncomfortable, at least for a little bit. And so that's one of the challenges that I think I've had to, or have to constantly redo, like just the mindset of where are you going and how are you going to get there? You might have to be uncomfortable, but it'll be okay as long as it's actionable. Like, you're making these tasks for a reason to reach a goal. And you can see the fruits of it. So that's one of them. And then I think another challenge is probably still mindset related, and for other creatives, is because our creative work is subjective, of course, you invite people's perspective or opinions of your work. And so just being able to not let people who have criticisms derail you or get you off track. It's harder said than done. I mean, easier said than done. But yeah, you're gonna have people who come and you're like, what? That's not even what if you would have read the book description, you would have known, or like, what? How did you get that from here? But it's art, so it's going to be criticized, and we're in the world of social media, so everybody think their opinions matter. That's another thing, just knowing that people are not going to like everything you put out. And then I also like to tell people, any entrepreneur that starts, that, you know, in the beginning you get in and you probably think, oh, my friends and family are going to be the people who are going to hold me up. And I'm not saying they're not going to support you, but they're not going to support you in a way that's sustainable, if that makes sense. So you have to define your target audience. You have to, like, you can start your business without knowing your audience, but you're going to need to figure it out real quick. Otherwise, you are going to be on a super struggle bus. So that was probably another challenge of mine, starting the business, not realizing I was starting a business, first off, because it was a bucket list item. But starting this business and not defining what my audience was, but once I understood what that meant and how that would propel me, figuring that out has really helped out. It helps with your face-to-face, it helps with your social media marketing, it helps with all the marketing, just to know who are you talking to. And then it also helps you with rejection because you understand like, oh, that person wasn't in my audience. So it doesn't matter if you don't want to buy this book, you're not my audience anyway. So you're exerting your energy where energy needs to be exerted. For instance, I like to use Black Boy Hair Joy and Scouts Honors as examples. So for Scouts Honor, I know that my audience is going to have a child that's between the ages of 4 to 6 because studies show that's when kids start lying. So if I know if a customer comes or potential customer comes up and I'm talking to them, like, oh, how old are your kids? I'm like, oh, they're 4. I'm like, oh, you know what book you need? And so I'm like, oh, I do need that book because you know they are starting to lie. Like that's how that goes. Black Boy Hair Joy. If they have a son that's in the age range of 4 to about 8, I'm like, oh, check this out. Let me see, let them see it. Do they like it? It's written like this. And so just knowing where to exert your energy. And sometimes they may not have a son, but they might have a godson or a nephew, and just getting them to think about things like that. But defining your audience is what's going to be your saving grace, and understanding that your friends and family may support you in other ways. So for us, getting reviews is important. So I might say, hey, can you write a review? Can you read this book and write an honest review? Or, hey, can you share this book with someone else? And not always, can you buy my service? Can you buy my products?
Right. Okay. That's really good. Really good advice for other business owners as well. What has been the most rewarding aspect of running your business?
The most rewarding aspect is probably the same as the scariest aspect, which is getting out there talking to people in real life. Yeah, has actually been the most rewarding part of it. It's like, oh, I don't want to do this, but you get to actually see in real time what attracts someone to you and your books. So people say, oh, I like what you're doing because we really need it. That's rewarding. Or I like I came over here because that book had the character looks like XYZ. Oh, thank you. Or I came over here because Winnie loves winter. For some reason, a few people, and I didn't think that was going to be my audience, but a few people have bought Winnie Loves Winter just because the girl's name is Winnie. And they're like, oh my darling's name is Winnie. Or I call her Winnie. Wow. And I'm like, oh, okay. I'm like, we never see anything with Winnie on it. So they like buy it just because it has that name. But like just people's reactions to it. But one of the biggest rewards, and I talk about it a lot, is I was at a vendor event, so a library festival, and this boy and his mom had come by. I'm trying to tell it real quick. This boy and his mom had come by. He was probably about 8 or 9 years old, and I was like, "Hey, what are y'all doing?" Blah blah blah. And she was like, "He doesn't like to read. He doesn't like books. I don't know why." And so I was like, "Well, you can't tell an author that. Like, what are you talking about?" So I picked up Black Boy Hair Joy because remember he's a Black boy, about 8 or 9. So I picked up Black Boy Hair Joy, started flipping through the pages with him, asking him if he had friends who had that type of cut, asking him, like showing him his cut, and like, oh, look what they say about your cut up in here, And so anyway, he started engaging with me a little bit. And then I was like, okay, that's enough. I don't want to keep y'all for this Saturday. So he walked off, but he came back and he was like, hey, my mom asked, how much is your book? So I was like, what? Okay, well, that book is XYZ. And so he walked off and then they came back and she was like, he wants the book. And I was like, what? So we had like this huge celebration about him wanting a book, the boy who doesn't read, wanting a book, and it was my book. So that's been like the biggest reward.
Wow, that's pretty awesome. Yeah, I'll definitely have to check that book out for my nephew for sure. Well, Tiffany, it has been so lovely chatting with you. Before we go, I wanted to give you an opportunity to share where our listeners can find out more information about you or purchase your books.
Yeah, so it's very simple, and I always credit my girl. I can't think of her name, so I guess she's not my girl, but someone I talked to early on in my business, she gave me this advice, and so I'm like, thank you so much. But anywho, So my publishing company is Sugar Cookie Books. And so you can find me at www.sugarcookiebooks.com. You can find me on Instagram, Facebook, Pinterest as Sugar Cookie Books. And you can find me on Teachers Pay Teachers. The store is Sugar Cookie Books.
Perfect. Perfect. So yeah, we'll definitely check out your website and your social media. Thank you so much for joining me today, Tiffany.
Thank you. It's been fun.
Yes, you're welcome. And thank you to our audience for listening. This has been another episode of the Building Her Dream podcast. If you've enjoyed it, why don't you go ahead and subscribe, leave us a review, and stay up to date with what we're doing by visiting www.buildingherdream.com.